tell the guys, we're thin but mighty. Anybody that's ever asked about our program over the last few years, I've been saying the same thing. And
Princeton's always been a tough football team. You know, one thing about us is we're going to play tough. We love to hit. You know, hitting is like preached, and it's like the gospel in Princeton.
I don't want to have all these rules and all these things that you got to try and memorize. Just the word all in. All in.
Football is one of the greatest sports in the world.
It was certainly emotional, no doubt about it. It always is between us and Ocean City.
I don't like losing. The kids don't like losing. And I don't want to lose to the same team over and over and over again. We want to win a state championship.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Cal One-on-One right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, as we roll on with our 2025 high school football previews. With me today is Middle Township head coach Gavin Liepe. Coach, good to talk to you again. Going into year 2 already, which I find hard to believe. I feel like we just talked about you getting the job just last year. So tell me about the offseason so far. You guys coming off a pretty good season in 2024, making the Group 2 playoffs. What's the offseason been like? And now that we're less than 2 months away from football season here in 2025.
First of all, thanks for having me, Nick. Super excited to be on. The offseason's been great. It's, graduating a ton of seniors was difficult, and we knew that, the offseason needed to be very intense and structured, and the kids bought in and did a great job. And we're already seeing the benefits as we've started mini camp in our summer training.
When you look at the offseason in terms of the weight room, did you guys focus on, I guess, maybe get max numbers up, just a lot of participation, especially with a younger team coming back this fall? What were some of the main goals over the course of the winter?
Well, I mean, obviously graduating as many seniors as we did, we have a lot of younger guys that are stepping into big roles. So I think in the beginning, the early winter, the focus was kind of making sure they understood the fundamentals, the proper form with each of the 3 major lifts, and kind of stemming off of that as we got into the spring. Our strength and conditioning coach, Durham Pally, played at Montclair State, health and exercise science guy, did a great job with the kids in the off season, and they're ready to go.
Love hearing that. Before I go into more of what's coming up this season, I did want to ask you, this actually just happened, I believe, within the last week. You're one of your running backs from last year, a great athlete, Remy Rodriguez. He actually is committed to Rutgers now as a preferred walk-on, I believe I saw as well. So first, just talk about that. Obviously, putting Middle Township on the Division I stage here coming up this fall, and he's going to get his opportunities. Go to a Big Ten school, get a great education, and obviously try to work his way on to the football team, maybe in a bigger role this year or later on down the road. But he's just one of the latest Cape Atlantic League kids to actually make his way up to the Scarlet Knights.
Absolutely, yeah, we're absolutely thrilled as a community down at Middle Township just to like you said, put a kid from our area on that type of stage. It's a big deal. And as soon as I got to Middle Township as an assistant coach, I mean, he stood out right away. You could tell he was playing at a different speed. And I mean, each of his 4 years, he's rushed over 1,000 yards. So, I mean, if there's anyone in the area that I think is deserving of this opportunity, I believe it's Remy. And we're just super excited as a community, like I said, to watch him go take advantage of it.
What were some of those conversations like with him? I forget if he was he committed somewhere else first?
Yeah. So he was previously committed to Montclair State. And, throughout the season, his senior season, we had a little bit of contact with Rutgers, and it kind of, fell off after the season had ended. So we sat down with Remy, and I kind of explained to him, we need to prioritize getting you on a roster and getting that 4-year degree. And Montclair State was one of the schools that was, after him a lot. And he went up on campus a few times, liked it up there. But, obviously when this new opportunity came knocking with Rutgers, that was something, he's always planned to do and dreamed to do. So he's excited.
Did Greg Schiano reach out to you, or was somebody else from the staff? Like, what do you think changed over the last couple of months? Especially, we're halfway through the summer, it seems like already, and obviously with college football beginning in less than 2 months, same time frame as, of course, the high school season. I mean, Rutgers is already gearing up. Fall camp's just right around the corner. So, what exactly changed? And they were just like, all right, we'll give you the preferred walk-on spot.
Yeah, I mean, in the initial conversations, I had his film sent out to a couple of the graduate assistants up there, and they had got his film up the ladder. And Greg Schiano directly reached out to me and told me that he liked Remy and that they would be continuing to evaluate him. as the season went on and throughout the spring. And we just really never heard anything. And all of a sudden, I'm teaching health and phys ed with a bunch of screaming sixth graders, and my phone starts ringing, and I see Joe Susan from Rutgers, and I'm like, oh boy, I got to step out and take this one. And Joe had called, I think that was early June, and let me know that they are looking at a couple of different kids to take on as a preferred walk-on at the running back position, and Remy's one of them. And they basically asked me, to be honest with them and tell them what type of kid Remy was, and if he was a kid that I believed, could play at that level and flourish on that stage. And I didn't lie one bit. I told them everything about Remy, and they said they'd get back to us. And a few weeks later, I got the call again from Shiano, and Remy got the nod. So we're super pumped.
Yeah, it's really awesome to hear. Awesome story, and obviously just, being patient, and of course the perseverance has paid off, and he certainly has Division I speed, as we've seen on the field over the last few years. So just going back towards the off season now for the kids that are back this season, it's interesting to me that, when you have to, you're going into year 2, so obviously you have experience under your belt now as a head coach. Do you lean on that now, considering you're just like, well, this team's really young now, so it's like I can't rely on a senior heavy class this time around? What changes for you and your staff going into the season?
Well, I mean, I've been saying this a lot to different people who have asked. That first year as a head coach was, I mean, to be quite frank, humbling. As a young guy, I was super excited. I had a lot of people behind me, and you feel like you have everything figured out. The game of football, and then you get into this position and you realize there's so much to learn, and so many aspects, even outside of football, that I had to learn how to adapt and become good at. So it was a lot to learn, and I think my staff is young too. Like, that's another thing. We're all about, I think our oldest guy is 32. And all of us have college playing experience and all that, but we haven't had a ton of high school coaching experience. So last year was awesome for us to really get our feet wet and understand different aspects of coaching high school football. And I think that moving into year 2, we all feel as a collective a lot more comfortable and a lot more prepared. Even just as far as how our off-season conditioning program went leading into the summer, we're all just more ready to go this year. Even though we thought we were last year, this year we definitely are for sure.
Is there a fine line of balancing expectations to get to the playoffs, make a playoff run? You guys have made the playoffs the past couple of years. Obviously, you want to take that next step and win a game or two and advance deeper into the bracket. But I guess the kids know that, especially the ones that were on the team last year. They experienced that, but now you have more guys stepping into a fresh role, a bigger role, where it's like they weren't on the field 100% of the time last year when you guys were having a solid season in 2024, even 2023 when you guys made the playoffs as well. Is there a nice little balancing act for you and your staff? It's like, okay, yeah, these are our expectations, but we still have to go, hey, we need to develop here, work on this, work on that, and obviously take it one game at a time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the young kids, especially the freshmen and sophomores, just because of this, recent stint of success we've had at Middle, they're kind of expecting, to be in the mix in the playoffs and have continued success the way, the past 5 years have been. This freshman class that coming in, they've had a great off season of work. They've been with Coach Pally for 3 or 4 months, 2 days a week. And they were able to, grow up and watch, the Michael Zarfadis, the Jerry Whites, those players flourish at Middle Township and go on to play college football after, great careers. And they're kind of expecting to follow in their footsteps. So I think we're kind of, taking a really good step in the right direction as far as culture and expectations to be successful as a program.
Well, 2025 should be a good one. We'll dive into more of who's back and what to expect this fall. In just a sec, it's Cal 101 right here on Cable Atlantic Live.
This broadcast is brought to you by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu. Located in Egg Harbor Township, Harbor Jiu-Jitsu is more than just training. Both adults and kids can gain practical skills that give you real confidence, build physical and mental resilience, and you can join a team that's here to help you grow. Featuring no gi, wrestling, and MMA classes. Harbor Jiu-Jitsu is the most dynamic gym in South Jersey. For more information, check out harborjujitsu.com.
So with a younger team, Gavin, it's interesting because, again, they're with less seniors. It's like, all right, who's going to step up and be leaders? But we before we got on, we were mentioning guys like Chase Moore, Noah Nagel, Davon Anderson. Those guys had substantial roles last year. Expect to step up even more this season. What can you say about those guys and maybe some other guys that I'm forgetting off the top of my head when it comes to, who's really going to really stand out for Middle Township this year?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you check into one of our games this season, you'll notice Chase Moore. I mean, he's 6'5", 180 pounds. You can't miss him. He's a great athlete. And last year, like you said, he had a very substantial role in both our offense and our defense. And so far, throughout the offseason and this summer, he's stepping up as a leader, and we're expecting really, really big things out of him. And what really stands out to me about him is his range. I mean, especially I'm a defensive guy. So, on the defensive side of the football, he can cover such a large amount of space, and, the offensive coordinator's got to account for that. We play him in the middle of the field, and, nowhere safe when you're throwing anywhere near that kid's direction. So we're excited for him to continue to build on his career and finish it off the right way. And then the other two you mentioned, Davon Anderson. He's been, a great addition to our program ever since he came in as a freshman. He's bought in, and he's also stepping into one of those leadership roles. But he brings a little bit more of an attitude, hitting wise on the defensive side of the ball. And I think we're looking for him to take that to the offensive side of the ball to fill in, Remy's footsteps as far as, taking handoffs and moving the ball down the field as a running back. So he's going to be, a guy that we lean on a lot this year and the year after. So we're excited about him. And then Noah Nagel, that's another guy who's completely bought into what we've done and what we're doing as a program. He shows up. He's the first one there, last one to leave every day, and empties the tank. And I think you need those type of guys, especially in key positions where he plays on the edge, outside linebacker. He plays, every single snap to the greatest of his ability. And I think that'll set a tone for us defensively. And then, I mean, you look at some of the real young guys from last year, some of the freshmen, some of the sophomores. You have Tyler King, who was a sophomore last year, big wrestling guy, but has done some really good things in the offseason with us. And, is another one who's very bought in. We're looking for him to step into a big role at strong safety for us this year. You have James Caldwell, a wide receiver who's going to be a senior this year. Really good player, a lot of range, just like Chase. Just hasn't gotten a ton of reps, but excited about him. And then you have a kid, Hunter White, who was a freshman last year, Jerry White's little brother, who we're very excited about on both sides of the football. He's a dynamic player. We can put him all over the field, and he's filled out a little bit over the offseason, so we're excited to see what he does. And another Dennis Township kid, Seth Germanio, running back, DB, stepping into a big role for us. We're not exactly sure where he's going to be defensively, but he's another one of those dynamic players that we're looking to step into a big role.
You mentioned Dennis Township, and would you consider that one of your primary feeder programs? I'm curious about your communication when it comes to, I guess, the youth football and like the type of image you want to put out there for the high school program to the youth football in the area. Is Dennis Township the primary, or are there?
Well, I would say Middle Township's definitely the primary, but Dennis is, I have a very close relationship with the people over there, and I'm always at their games on Saturdays, and I think they produce very, very knowledgeable, quality football players every year since I've been a part of this program. So I prioritize, making sure that I show my face there and, develop relationships with those kids, because just about all of them, that come to Middle end up being, key factors within our program.
I know Middle's been, one of those smaller schools that's been affected by the numbers game, so to speak, in not necessarily recently, but there's been dips where a lot of kids come out for football, and then the next year, maybe there's half as much. What have you noticed in terms of the participation numbers from the youth and leading up into the high school program at this point? Because, again, you already alluded to, all the freshmen and sophomores that you've been very excited about going into the season, especially the kids that were coming from, that just graduated 8th grade, that are now in the high school program. What have you noticed in terms of, I guess, the influx of youth talent and the numbers, to put it simply?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing for me personally, being able to be a teacher at the middle school, that helps a lot because I'm with those kids every single day, and we have a billboard in our locker room, boys locker room, and I put all the pictures of Remy, Zarfati, all of the big time players, and the headlines every week, and I get to interact with those kids and develop relationships with them every single day. And they know, in the springtime when football is starting to, creep up on us, that they start gravitating towards me and they're excited. And that's been a really big factor in attracting the younger crowds and getting these, freshman and sophomore classes, where they needed to be and where they're at now.
Speaking of other stuff, when it comes to position battles for your team this year, I know there was a couple seniors that were operating the quarterback position last year. Have you decided on a quarterback? Is that still an ongoing battle through camp? What's the latest with the most important position?
Yeah, it's definitely, a very important position, but I think that, last year we had those two seniors, like you said, and it was back and forth throughout camp, and a guy that, was in that mix kind of gets forgotten about, who's back this year. That's Joe Bacchius. And right after the season had ended last year, I had a one-on-one conversation with him, just kind of explaining, what it means and what it takes to be the starting quarterback, of a high school football program, and, kind of what needs to be done to get yourself into that position. And he understood those expectations, and he's worked really hard and solidified himself as a leader during the off season. But, you never know, kids can flash during camp. We have a freshman that we're really excited about, Corey Gaskins, who's bought into the program and done really well. And you, like I said, you really never know, but you have that guy that you hope really meets the expectations and becomes the leader he should be. And for right now, for us, that's Joe.
When you look at your offense and defense, have you had to make any changes compared to last year in terms of scheme fits and based on the personnel that you have? Or are you pretty much operating, business as usual like you did last year with maybe, some finer tweaks here and there?
I think the biggest jump in changes that I had to make came from my year under Frank Regitano, just because that roster was filled with studs, and there was a lot of things that I could play with and do as a defensive coordinator and get away with, just because of the athleticism. So last year was, for me going into the head coaching role, still remaining as the DC, that was definitely a challenge for me because we lost a lot of those really good athletes. It didn't mean we didn't have guys to step into, those roles, but there's definitely things as a defensive coordinator, certain schemes that I had to avoid last year that, I could have done the year previous. And I think it's going to be a similar trend this year. I think everything defensively is going to be pretty much exactly the same. We're going to have to stunt. We're going to have to move. We don't have insane size up front, but the athleticism on the back end is definitely going to bail us out. And that's the plan.
Is that what you do on offense as well when you mentioned the size up front where, maybe it's not as big as even some other Group 2 schools that, have historically bigger lines, or obviously when you look at the bigger schools, they generally have bigger offensive and defensive lines. How do you guys generally scheme? Is it simply just scheming around that and doing stuff a little bit more unorthodox, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, James Marcheski, he's been my right-hand man for as long as I can remember. I've, known him since 8th grade. We've played at Holy Spirit together, TCNJ. He was always the offensive guy. I was always the defensive guy. He does a great job just kind of bringing it down to the kids' level and making sure that, they're crystal clear on what they need to do. And last year, I mean, you look at who we had in the backfield, it didn't take much. All we had to do was turn around and hand it off. You had Remy, you had Sean.
Yeah.
So last year was pretty easy for him, but I think, as a staff collectively, we're kind of realizing that, this year we're going to need to get a little more creative. We're going to need to run more formations. We're going to, have to do things a little bit more unconventionally than we have in the past. But I have a lot of faith in James Marcheski and, my offensive coordinator in doing that. And I think he's in the same boat as I am. We're learning and we're growing together, and we're only going to get better at it.
Yeah, you guys open up, I believe I have this right, August 28th at home against Gateway.
Yep.
All right, so that's a season opener, and I can't believe this is already. We're talking about maybe that's seven weeks if my math is correct. Which the season is fast approaching right here from Middle Township. Gavin Liepe with me here on Cal 1-on-1. I'll leave you here with this one, and I ask every coach. I've been doing it all summer. I'm curious about your guys' team motto for the year, whether it's just a word or a phrase. Same one as last year, same one as always, or a new one every year. What defines Middle Township football here in 2025?
We actually take something from the U.S. Navy SEALs. So my old coach at Holy Spirit used to, always bring us quotes from the SEALs and different things, different aspects of, how they approach certain things. So I always pay attention to what the SEALs do and how they operate, And one of the big things I take away from them is their little mantra, full benefit. And basically what that says is, out of any situation, regardless if it's good, bad, or indifferent, you have to find a way to, get the best out of it and always see through adversity and make sure you everybody's on the same page as getting something out of facing that adversity. So that's kind of been our mantra this year, leading into the summer, and we'll probably roll with it throughout the year.
Love hearing that one. It's a good one. All right. Once again, Middle Township against Gateway at home on August 28th. That'll be the 2025 season opener. Gavin, appreciate your time today, my man. Good luck this year. Looking forward to watching the Panthers on the gridiron this fall. And maybe we'll talk again with another playoff run here in 2025.
That's the plan.
Gavin Liepe here with me on Cal 1-on-1. Be sure to follow us on social media. Of course, check out the rest of our podcasts on Cape Atlantic Live on YouTube. We'll see you next time.